Hello everyone, and welcome to Psychology 215, Basic Statistical Methods online. My name is Matt Andrzejewski, and I'll be your instructor for this semester. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the course and why we study statistics, why it's so important in psychology, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the course and the course requirements and so on, and basically introduce you to the course. So, when we have something we don't know, when we want to learn something about the world, we can approach that problem in a variety of ways. We can learn things by critically thinking about them, by asking an authority, by having a religious experience. I mean, there are some would argue that these are ways in which we learn about our world. However, I would argue that collecting data, doing a scientific experiment, is the surest way to learn something about our world, something that we don't know. If we want our decisions guided by the best information available or the best methods available, I would argue that collecting data and conducting scientific experiments is the best way. However, in the behavioral sciences and psychology, data are very messy. At first glance, data often look like an incoherent jumble of numbers, and we are immediately confronted by the question: how do we make sense of these data? And statistical procedures, what those are tools for learning about our world by learning from data. So if we're going to use data to inform our decisions, then we have to have ways, we have to have tools, standard procedures, so to speak, in dealing with these messy numbers. In this course, I hopefully at the end of the course you will be able to have some new skills, be able to do some new things. Hopefully you have developed an understanding of what data represent. You should be able to utilize methods for summarizing and describing data. You should be developing skills for performing basic data analyses. You should be able to draw inferences from samples to larger groups, which is an important part of the second half of this course. You should be able to conduct statistical analyses on a personal computer, and hopefully you will have developed a critical attitude in the reception of statistical information. These are the basic objectives of this course, and hopefully by the end of the course time you will be able to do these things. In order to accomplish those goals, what we're going to be doing is we're going to use a fairly standard procedure, standard practice for each of the units in the course. There's a reading assignment, there's an associated PowerPoint lecture, there are also PowerPoint demonstrations. I will be conducting what I call on-the-board practice or on-the-board exercises. There'll be lab exercises out of a workbook that you should work on. There is a number of practice exercises. There are problem sets. I am going to give you feedback on this process, and then we're going to do it again. Rinse and repeat is a joke because that's what it says on the back of a shampoo bottle, that instructions for washing your hair. You should rinse and then repeat it. So we're going to be doing this method, this format over and over again. There's going to be a reading assignment, there's going to be a lecture, there's going to be practice, there's going to be a lab, there's going to be more practice, there's going to be a problem set, there's going to be feedback, and then the next method, the next unit, and so on. The reading assignments are going to come from a book called Learning from Data, which I am an author on with Art Glenberg. In that book are explanations, examples, definitions, formula, practice exercise, tables, references, and so on. So this is the basic textbook of the course. It's available through the bookstore. You can either go to the bookstore and pick it up, or you can request it online if you haven't already, and the bookstore will send it to you. It's part of the rental agreement at the university, so you should get this book. Other statistics textbooks aren't going to have the same focus, the same information in them, so you should make sure that you get a hold of this textbook. This is the third edition of Learning from Data. I will refer to this sometimes as LFD, which stands for Learning from Data, or LFD3, which is Learning from Data third edition. There are some significant changes from the second edition, so you should have this edition. I also have constructed a workbook. Now, in the face-to-face version of this class, rather than online, you would actually acquire this workbook um, from the bookstore. But all the units in this workbook are online. I think there's 11 or 12 units in the workbook. They correspond with the 11 or 12 units of the course. In them, they have on the board exercises. You'll see those as you flip through the PDFs of these. These are available online on the D2L site. There's a checklist of objectives for each unit. There's step-by-step Excel instructions. There's examples. There's practice exercises. There's formulae right in the workbook, and also something called the decision tree, which we'll get to near the end of the course. As I mentioned just previously, we're going to be conducting all the analyses that we do in this class in the program Excel. So there's no need to acquire some statistical package or statistical calculator. We're going to be doing everything in this course in Excel. And Excel is a very powerful program, and it's a very good program, and it has a lot of benefits, a lot of pros, a few cons, but mainly pros. You can organize your data, you can store your data, you can manage your data, you can manipulate your data, you can do so many things in Excel. You can graph your data, and you can analyze your data. With worksheet functions and with add-in utilities, we're going to be able to do everything we need to do for this course. And given that it's one software package rather than multiple ones, I think that's a real benefit. So, in addition, I think by the end of the course you'll have some familiarity with Excel, and you can use it in your own life. You can use it in your professional life. You can do your own budget. I've heard of students doing scheduling. They're managers at a retail store, and they were doing scheduling in Excel. It's a very, very super powerful program, and has all sorts of features to it. I assume that you know nothing about Excel, and the first unit in the workbook is an introduction to Excel. If you don't have Excel, you can get Excel free through the university. You can get the entire Office, Microsoft Office suite, of which Excel is one part. So you're going to have to go to the software page of ICIT or Learning Technology Center and download that. They have a version called Office 365, which you can use for free as a student of the university. We're going to be using real data in this class. There are two studies that we're going to be looking at, the smoking study and the maternity study. Just briefly, the smoking study is a study by Dr. Tim Baker at the University of Wisconsin Center for Tobacco Research and Intervention. It's interesting, he just came out with a new paper on the genetics of smoking. If anybody's interested in that, I can tell you a little bit more. But it's an enormous data set, 608 participants, multiple variables that we measured on withdrawal and how to best quit smoking. It was a 2x2, what we call a 2x2 design. It was a fairly complicated design, but a lot of good stuff, a lot of good measures, like even physiological measures like carbon monoxide output in a participant's breath. So really good stuff. We're going to be looking into that a little bit as examples of how to conduct a certain analysis or issue. Excuse me. The second study is from Drs. Janet Hyde and Marilyn Essex at the Wisconsin Maternity Leave and Health Project, and the Wisconsin Study of Families and Work, and this is what we call the Maternity Study. This was about young couples. I don't know that they were particularly young, but they were having their first child together, and this was information, a study about how that impacted their life. So there were 244 families that participated, primarily in Milwaukee and Madison, but again, a boatload of data, an enormous data set as studies go, and they followed these families longitudinally. What that means is that they followed them over time, so they got the same measures at multiple points, like what is the impact of the baby on marital satisfaction was one important question, and so on. So to the syllabus now. The course content is completely online. Your grade, I'm sure you're interested in. I'm going to talk about how the course content is delivered in a next video on D2L. But your grade is based on 11 problem sets. Each of the problem sets is worth 4 points. I drop the lowest one. If you fail to do one, that counts as your lowest, and you get it, and it doesn't hurt you. I know sometimes we run into trouble and life happens, and you can't get something done. So only the best 10 count. There are 2 exams, each counting 30 points each. They're not technically cumulative, but the second exam builds on the skills that we've learned in the first half of the course. So each exam also has 2 parts. One part is computations on small sets of data, and the other part is terms and definitions, interpretations of results, and so on and so forth. Okay. Regarding the problem sets, I have an important policy. It's maybe different than most situations in classes, and that is that you only receive a grade on your homework and your problem sets when they are completely done correctly, Okay, if you submit a homework and it's complete and correct 100% the first time, you'll receive full credit, 4 points. Each successive try, you will be docked a point. Okay, so this is what I call our resubmission or resubmit policy, and that is that when you submit your homework, you'll either get a score of 4 and then something like, nice job, you did a great job, or good work, or something like that, or I will specify questions that you need to go back and correct. And this is based on a principle from learning, and that is that in order for you to learn something, you need to practice it correctly. And if you've completed your homework problem set and haven't practiced that procedure correctly, then you'll probably not practice it correctly in the future. What you need to do is make corrections, learn it, how to do it the right way, and then submit it from there. So hopefully this provides incentive for doing it on time, completely right the first time. So that's how the problem set policy works. And you can read more about that in the syllabus. If you have any questions, you can drop me an email. Again, as I said, I'm going to now move on in the next video talking about D2L content and how that proceeds. And it's very important you watch that video, and we'll talk to you soon.